I ain't saying nothing.
Hey. Oh, we already got people on here. Hey, everybody. It's your girl, Shauna Solomon, your fave style mother. And I want to welcome to, well, let me say real quick, this is the first official Life of a CEO series. And I'm so pleased to have my girl, Chaka Poole, here with me. I'm excited because we have people already on. Today, we are going to be talking to Chaka, Miss Chaka, about the business of insurance. So for those who do not know me, I am the owner and founder of Shauna Solomon and Associates, and I help business owners go from stuck to six figures. And what I wanted to do with this vlog is to provide small business owners with resources that they can use to help them get closer to success. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce my boo thing, Chaka.
Hello, everyone. I am Chaka of the Brown Insurance Agency. We are located at 5001 Baum Boulevard, Suite 515 in the city of Pittsburgh, catty corner from the get-go on Baum. I specialize in business insurance, but we do also write home, auto, and life insurance as well. So, hello.
Hey, so one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Chaka on first is because ultimately, first of all, I deal with a lot of business owners in the realm of coaching and hosting classes. And one of the things that sticks out to me the most is what is needed. So I'm like, I got to get my girl Chaka on here because we talk about this all the time. It's one of the most things that people look over, right? So talk to me about how, like, first of all, how you got into insurance, and then we'll go from there.
So I actually got into insurance. It was like a fluke. So I had been working in corporate America literally all my life. Was working for Verizon Communications and got laid off. And when I got laid off, I kind of really didn't know what direction that I was going to because everywhere I applied, I was overqualified. I was overqualified for everything. So it was just like basic jobs that I was applying to. I'm sorry, you're overqualified. And I'm like, how the heck am I overqualified? So my boys played basketball, and Kevin Brown, he was actually in the same AAU program that we were in. So he owned his own insurance company at that time. And I'm just like, hey, Kevin, give me a call. Like, if you just want somebody to come into the office, answer the phones, like, I can definitely do that. Fast forward, he's seen how good I was in the office on the phone coming from Verizon, encouraged me to get my license. He actually paid for me to get my license, and I left and went to BNY Mellon because they offered me a job. And at that particular time, they were offering me more than what I was getting at the Brown Agency. So left, got into a car accident, had a fire, like all this stuff happened. And ultimately I ended up back at the Brown Agency. And at that time, Kevin was like, look, you got to get your license. So got my license in 2015. And it's literally been uphill from there. Like, I never knew how much I would enjoy servicing people in my community. And I've always wanted a job to where I would be able to service people. I did not know that that would come through insurance. Perfect. So being able to educate people, being able to provide them with the tools in order for them to be able to protect their investments, it's just been a great experience.
Nice. I love it. And talk about purpose, right? So since you brought up education, yes, right? We talking about education. Educate us on, let's kind of just like jump right in with how important is insurance when it comes to small business.
So I think probably what we need to do first is like, what is business insurance? Like, yes, what is it? So business insurance is basically financial protection to protect you from losses that occur before, during, and after business hours. It can also help pay for costs of property damage, lawsuits, lost income, and also other covered losses that can be included of that, such as your business personal property if it was to be damaged during some type of claim.
Real quick, real quick,
So, I mean, that's
real
what
quick.
business, go ahead.
So you mentioned loss of income, right? That's something that we don't talk
Mhm.
about in small business when it comes to insurance and having that type of coverage, right? So when you say loss of income, I'm sorry, not loss of insurance, loss of income, explain that some.
Absolutely. So, I'm actually want to speak to your direct audience because you do a lot with retail space.
Yes.
So let's just say one of your clients, they have a retail store, okay? And I'm not even going to say that it is their building that catches fire. Let's just say that the building next to them catches fire,
Mm,
destroys your client's space. Okay. So, in that space, let's talk about it. We're a retail store. So, in this space, we're going to have inventory. Okay. So, not only did you lose your inventory, you also lost the space that you do business. So, this happens. All you have is a general liability policy. Okay. General liability in itself does not cover loss of income. This has to be something that's added to your policy.
mm.
So let's say it takes 3 months for your building to be repaired for you to be able to move in. And in this 3 months' time, you didn't have anywhere else that you can actually have a physical brick and mortar store for you to be able to put your retail items in. You're losing income.
Right,
So if
right.
you don't have this loss of income on your policy, not only are you losing income from all the items and inventory that you lost, but you're also losing income from the people coming into your business. And I'm gonna add another
Mm.
layer onto that. Let's say it's prime season. You know, a lot of people spend money during the summer. So your inventory may have been bigger. Your bottom line may be larger in the summer months because this is like the season for you to make money. That loss of income will also pick that up. So like
Wow.
these are things you really want to think about when you're looking at your business insurance policies.
Wow. And here I am thinking, like, I mean, I know that I'm covered when it comes to certain things, but it's definitely going to got to ask some other questions. What are some of the questions that an insurance agent should be asking small businesses who are in, I'll just, go into my client base when it comes to retail businesses, because I know every business, when you're doing this interview or when you're asking them questions, to quote them, that you're asking different questions. What are some of the questions that they need to be prepared for?
So for retail space, so I have like a questionnaire that I send out based on the type of business that you're in. But I would say the most important questions that an agent should be asking someone for retail space is one, how much inventory do you carry in that space?
Hmm.
Two, if you have employees, you want to know what that payroll is for the employees.
Hmm.
Three, you also want to know what the annual revenue is because that annual revenue, that number is what's going to pay out that loss of use coverage or that income protection coverage. So, like, whenever people, sometimes people get a little funny when questions like this are asked, like, why do you need to know, like, what I make yearly? Well, I'm
Right.
asking you this question because I want to protect your income if there's ever any type of incident to where you're losing it.
Right. Okay. So then if they are coming to you, so that was amazing information. And that was like basically when it comes to opening up a retail business, but I know you deal with all kind of different businesses. I mean, and people are going to comment, so I'll come back to you. Thanks. Jay said this is awesome. I just signed my first lease last week. Congrats. Congrats. Um,
Congratulations.
and Shaka's information is at the bottom of the screen if anybody needs insurance. But my another question is, what is the basic information that they need as well? Because I'm pretty sure you get a lot of clients who come to you and you need some basic information to be able to even say that you're an actual business so that they can be covered.
So believe it or not, I get a lot of phone calls from people who are starting up their businesses. And when they're calling me and they're asking me for insurance, they're calling me a little too soon. So these are businesses that don't even have an EIN in place. For those of you that don't know, you can actually go right onto the IRS website and you can have an EIN number within 5 minutes. There's another thing to where I'm going to check. So if you're reaching out to me and you're saying, "Hey, I have a business and I'm an LLC and I want to get insurance," I'm going to go to the PA entity site to see whether or not if you're registered. If you are not registered, if you have not paid for you to be able to have an LLC or a fictitious name, if you're a sole proprietor, or if you have not registered for a corporation, I cannot provide you with insurance because just because you say you're an LLC doesn't mean that you're an LLC. And you may look at that to where you don't understand the importance of that. But whenever I'm setting up insurance, when that insurance goes to pay out something, they have to figure out who is the insured interest. Okay. And if you're just saying you're an LLC, but you're not really established as an LLC, how can they pay out monies to something that is not a legitimate business? So, like, these are things that whenever you're coming to me, you definitely want to make sure you have your business name, you want to make sure that you're registered. You also want to make sure that you have an EIN number in place.
So is that something that you help people with? Because I know that we have cross paths with a lot of different business or some of the same businesses. Is that something that you can help them with, or do you just kind of just say, "Hey, this is what you need before you come to me"? I love the fact that you said that a lot of them are coming to you prematurely because some people will just allow them to. And some of those online companies will allow them just to go ahead and pay. We had this conversation yesterday when I was teaching a class that you can go online and fill out a form and they might not check everything as thoroughly as you do, but when it, like you said, when it comes time to pay or to pay out, that's when that issue arises. How often does that happen? And it, how what's the question I want to say, how can we, I guess the best way to avoid that would be to make sure that we have that, that these businesses are showing up with their EINs. What else do they need? Do they need a business address?
Absolutely. Well, whenever you're registering your business, there will be a business address. Your business can be located out of your home. So you don't physically need like a virtual space or anything like that. You can use your home address. But I'm just going to go back to what you had just said. So I'm going to give you an example of something that's going on right now
Absolutely.
with a claim with one of our insurers. And I'm not going to say, any names, but basically they have a policy with one name. And we had talked about a couple of months of him having a DBA. Okay. So he never really provided the paperwork for the name change. So what happened is he had a claim, and the insurance company is paying that claim out under the business name that he registered his insurance under. Well, the problem is he changed his name. So the check is being written out for one name, and he's indicating that his business is in another name. And when I had addressed this months ago, he said, "Oh, well, I'm not ready to change my name yet." And I'm like, "Well, this is something you need to do because you're operating under another business name. If something was to happen, you want to make sure that not only are you going to be properly covered, but if there's any checks that's cut out, it's being cut out to the correct name." So now he's in limbo with all of this. He deposited the check into his bank. He doesn't know whether or not if they're going to pay for excuse me, whether or not if they're going to
Okay.
accept the check. But again, this is something like you want to have these conversations. If you're making changes with your business, if your payroll has changed, if your annual revenue has changed, like these are all things that you want to have a conversation with your agent about. And what I will say is, your agent should be a little proactive in reaching out to you maybe 90 days prior to renewal. Has anything changed in your business? A lot of times people don't like to provide accurate information because you don't want your insurance to go up. But I guarantee you rather pay that extra, $50 a month than to have a claim and not be compensated for your inventory because your inventory went from 25,000 to 50,000 and you lost it all.
Right. So amazing information. How do you feel, since we kind of brought up the whole, we're talking about that process of being in business. And again, I know we've had conversations about entrepreneurship. How do you feel like how do you feel as a insurance professional when it comes to so many people jumping into entrepreneurship and not being ready?
So I feel like I know it's like a trend, like, and we've seen this trend uptick since the pandemic. And what I will say about our people is we're resilient. We're gonna find a way to make some money. We're gonna
Absolutely.
do it. You know what I mean? And like sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. But I would definitely recommend having a coach that's going to assist you with preparing everything properly. Because if you're not preparing everything properly, you may end up losing money as opposed to gaining money. And then I know we all, we know we're going to lose money the first couple years, but why are we losing money for things such as, paying somebody to get you an EIN number? Like, why are we paying somebody to do an EIN number when we could do that
Right.
ourselves?
Right. And that's something to me that I
So
feel
these are
like,
things that we really want to think about.
yeah, I think to me, I feel like there's like basic steps that, and again, I get it because I did it. And entrepreneur, when it came to being an entrepreneur, it was like there were certain steps that I skipped. It wasn't the EIN because I'm about the
Right,
money.
right, right.
But I do recognize that there are some steps that are being skipped. And I think from, with SSA, our goal is growth. So we can't assist you with growing if you don't have certain things in place. And the reason why I wanted to do this series is because I wanted them to hear it. I wanted businesses to hear it directly from people that are like us, who are in business and knowing what can happen if you don't have certain things set up. One of the things that I remember years ago was when I had Exotic Hush and we flooded, and we weren't insured properly. And it wasn't, well, I take that, and we didn't have flood insurance. So none of that stuff, like, and it didn't end up getting covered. Well, ended up getting covered the first time, not the second time, but it got covered like under because of something else. But again, that taught me a lot, and we don't want you to. And for those that are watching, if you have any questions, definitely put up in the chat box. What we don't want is for you to go through some of these trials and making some of these mistakes that some of us who have been in it for a long time have already made, that can stop you from doing that, especially when I think about how much money I lost because I didn't have loss of income either. And either, like, thank God
Right.
I was able to shift online, but that loss of income is something that, again, people are not, we don't have that conversation, so that we don't know that that's something that we need. A lot of people will just say, okay, I have the insurance. And I think we had talked about people just want the certificate of insurance, but they don't really know what's
Mm-hmm.
backing that, or, what, because you can still, so
Right.
let's
Right.
let's let's let me ask you this. If somebody doesn't have the right coverage, how can that affect their business?
So, I mean, basically, what ends up happening is you're going to impact your bottom line because you're going to have to pay out of pocket for something that you maybe have shouldn't have paid out of pocket for. I had did a TikTok video yesterday talking about involuntary property damage, and this is like a coverage that any type of contractor should have. So, regardless of whether or not if you're painting, if you are carpentry, masonry, like there are things that can happen outside the scope of your business that may provide a claim. I'll give you another example. With one of our insureds, he has a debt company, okay? And what ended up happening is he was running a trench in order for him to be able to build the deck. And while he did this, the retaining wall was unsteady. So it actually, when he was digging this trench, the retaining wall came down. So if he wouldn't have had that involuntary property damage on there, it would not have been covered. He would have had to pay for that out of pocket to get the insureds, well, not the insurers, but his client's retaining wall fixed because it fell down because of work that he was doing.
And possibly sued, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you don't pay for it, I'm suing you. Like, You gonna come in here and you're gonna fix
Right,
this because I paid
right.
you to do a job and you damaged this while you were doing that job.
Wow.
So he
And
had the
again,
coverage. He was able to call in.
wow. And again, think that's stuff that we don't think about, that in order for us to stay ahead of the game, these are the type of clients, these are the type of interviews that we are going to be doing so that nobody is going to fall behind or not be properly covered or not have their stuff set up right. So because those are things that'll set you back in business. Like not having coverage,
Exactly.
not having the right coverage can literally set you back. And we're already behind. So we have to show up ready. We do have a question from Joy.
Mhm.
Hi, cousin. Is that loss of income coverage similar to an AFLAC?
So no. So AFLAC is like accidental. You get hurt. So like we have Aflac as well. So like if I was to break my arm, I can go to the hospital and I can't type, so they're going to, pay a portion of my income. With income loss for situations like this, I'll give you another example. There was a transformer that went out and it took the electricity out for one of our clients. And when it went out for like 11 days. Like they could not figure out what the problem was. And I had an insured that had a beauty shop. What are you doing in a beauty shop without electricity?
Right.
You need that electricity. So at that particular time, that's another coverage, for utility outages. So being that the utilities were out, she couldn't have clients in there. And then always remember there's a waiting period. There's always a waiting period on any type of claim when it comes to being paid out for income, even if it's just a regular car insurance policy. There's like a 5-day waiting period before you can go back and claim income loss from you being out of work due to a car accident. So it works the same with the business insurance policy, but you're out of electricity for 2 weeks because 10 days, if we're talking business days, that's 10 days that you can't have people coming into your shop and I'm losing money. So I'm not going to pay you for that first week, but the second week they will.
Wow. So you
And that
basically,
is based off your income. So like if you say, and of course you're going to have to provide documents. So if it says, I make this amount. So let's just say you make $10,000 a month. But when they ask for your receipts, it's 5,000. You're going to get the 5,000, not 10,000. So you want to make sure that you're giving accurate information because you're going to pay a premium for that 10,000 a month. But if that's not really what you're making, then don't provide that information.
so let's talk about that real quick because I know you mentioned that before with the amount of coverage and the amount of income that they should be putting down. What income should
Mhm.
they be putting down when they or should, especially if they're just starting? What would they put down? Um, or what would you I know everybody is different, but would they put
Mhm.
zero?
Absolutely not. So you would do a projection. So it would be just like if you were making a business plan to submit to the bank, like in this particular year, I'm anticipating making this amount. And if that's the amount that you're making, then, well, if that's the amount that you're assuming that you're going to make, go ahead and put that down. But maybe 6 months in, since you're new, revisit it and say, okay, is this number accurate to what I'm making? Is it over? Is it under? Does it need adjusted? Sometimes you might not really have an accurate picture until after that year is over. But again, this is where it comes into having those conversations at the end of the year with your insurance agent to say, hey, I said that I was going to make $50,000 this year. I made 100. So we need to make sure that this is updated, or it could be on the back end. I said I was
Mhm.
going to make $50,000 this year, only made 25. So we need to adjust this. So the premium for that is really not a lot to have that included. So again, you definitely just want to have these conversations because at the end of the day, you want to protect your investment.
So having insurance is just as, or having an insurance agent is just as important as having an attorney. As is just as important as
I
having
agree.
an accountant. I think
I
that
agree.
in small business, and again, I will go back to the fact that we get into business, um, most of us out of need, and we skip so many steps. And again, we go through those phases where we have to trial and error and learn different things. If you could tell somebody, if you could tell somebody what are some of the main insurance, because what if they say don't have the money, right? I'm just not getting started, but I might not have enough for all of those coverages right now. What would be one of the main ones that you would tell them to get?
I would say protect their business personal property. So like your general liability, that's going to have your standard 1 million, 2 million coverage. But if you have property in your shop, you want to make sure that that's covered as well. You want to think about, and maybe what I should do is say it this way. You want to think about the things that you need to have in order for you to be able to operate your business.
Okay.
When you're looking at these things, if you don't have them and you're not able to operate your business, then you need to make sure you have coverage for it.
Nice. Okay. So I know guys, this is a lot of information. It's a lot of great information. She kind of talked about the retail aspect of with the retail side of everything. What about those of us who have services? Do we, because I've literally heard people say because they have services that they didn't need insurance. Let's talk about it.
So as an insurance agency, so like we have an insurance agency. So like when you think about insurance agency, we provide a service. And a lot of people think, oh, well, like right now, we've literally been operating outside of the office, which a lot of people have been doing since the pandemic. So we're all working remotely. So when you're thinking about that, okay, there's no one in the office, no one's going to slip and fall. What do I need? Okay, so we're providing a service to where we have a database. We have a database of clients. In that database of clients, we have, social security numbers, dates of birth, driver's license numbers, addresses. Like we have all these things. So someone hacks into our system, gets all that information. If you don't have insurance, who do you think is paying for that? You are, because like right now, the way that it works is if you have some type of data breach within your organization, you have to pay for a 1-year subscription for credit monitoring for every single client that you have. We have thousands of clients. 1-year subscription. So we have thousands of clients. Let's just say it's $10. Okay, $10 per client times 1,000 that we're going to have to pay out of pocket to make sure that these people have credit monitoring, to look at their credit, to make sure that the information that was breached from our office isn't subjected for people to go out there and take it and buy a car or open up a bank account. So like these are things you want to think about. Like, yeah, you're providing a service, but there are still other things. Let's say you're selling hair. That's a service. Okay. Let's just say there was some type of chemical that was in this hair. You have a client puts this wig on and it breaks their face out or makes their hair fall out because of the chemical that was put in the hair. Who's paying for that? Who you think they're suing? They're not suing the people that you bought. They're not suing the vendor. They're suing you because you sold it to them. So like, what you want to keep in mind too is like business insurance. It doesn't just protect you from slip and falls and things like that. It also provides legal representation should you be sued by a client or a third party. So you don't have to go out and buy an attorney because that's included in your insurance.
Mm-hmm. So a couple people jumped on when you started talking about that, because again, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because these are the type of conversations that we need to have in the Black community so that we are steps ahead when it comes to our businesses. Like I had a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about how so many people do not give grace. They want grace, but they don't want to give it. But when it comes to us supporting us, a lot of times, like we come down harder on us than we do on these bigger corporations. So you want to absolutely make sure that your stuff is intact when it comes to dealing with people. So one of the questions that we have is Tiffany Howard. Hey, Tiff, is what about if you are an online coach, would I need insurance? Go ahead, Chaka.
So you're coaching people to do something. Okay. So the advice that you're giving someone is making them react and do something else. So you could have somebody come back and say, "Oh, well, Tiffany said for me to do this," and then they go out and do it, and they might not follow the instructions that you gave it to them, but they interpreted it because remember, everything we say to someone is subject to interpretation. It might mean something to you, it might be completely different to me. So they go out there and they do something based on what you told them, and they injure someone or damage someone or maybe say the wrong thing to someone. Now, someone is coming back to sue them for what you told them to do. And then now she's coming back to say, well, she said for me to do it. So I'm not liable. She's liable. That's your professional liability. So you want to make sure that anytime you are consulting, giving anyone any type of information for them to run their business or to run their life, you definitely want to make sure that you have professional liability insurance because anything can happen with that information that you're providing them with.
So my question is, how does the insurance, so like say with being a coach and having them sign off on certain things. I know you're not a lawyer, but what type of contracts or what type of things need to be in these so we can kind of protect ourselves, or does it matter at all? Does it matter at all?
So just from what I see from in usually whenever I'm writing professional liability insurance, they always want you to first of all have a contract for every single thing that you do. You definitely want to make sure that you consult with an attorney to have a contract with your services and things that you're liable for and things that you're not liable for. You also want to make sure that you have a hold harmless agreement. And again, that's going to be based on the type of business that you have. But responsible insurance companies, they're asking questions to see whether or not if you have that in place. And if you don't have it in place, they're not going to give you a professional liability policy.
Mm, what y'all think about that? So my question, I have another question because here I go piggyback off and everything because I make sure that I have look with my people sign all kind of stuff because listen, I can tell you what to do, but it's up to you to do it. But what's the difference between having an insurance agent, like somebody that's personal, like Shaka does a thing when it comes to how she is with her clients, than dealing with somebody that's more commercial, where you might not have that one-on-one interaction?
So this is just my personal opinion. Like there's a lot of 1-800 companies out there where you can just call them and you can get an insurance policy and things are what they are. But when you do things like that, first of all, not only are you getting a one-on-one conversation with someone who's going to be able to understand the ins and outs of your business, every single time you call to ask a question, you're going to be speaking to someone else different.
Yeah.
So if you are constantly speaking to me about what's going on with your business, not only am I retaining that information, but I'm also documenting it because we can't remember everything. So it's just going to build rapport. And that's one of the biggest things that we communicate here at the Brown Agency. Like you're not just clients, you're family. So whenever we're handling your business, property, whatever the case may be, we are going to approach it with the aspect as we're all family and we're going to take care of you just like we would want for someone to take care of us. So
Right.
I think that's kind of why the bulk of our business comes from referrals. We get referral calls all the time just because of how we treat our clients and how we assist you and how we're available. So, in my opinion, I feel like that is the biggest thing with insurance. And I come from a background of not having an agent to having an agent. And this is completely off topic, but before I came to the Brown Agency, I had a homeowner's insurance policy through a 1-800 company, and I was not properly insured. And when Kevin looked at that, he actually rewrote my policy. And like a year later, I had a fire. And if I would have had that fire when I was with that other carrier, I would have lost everything. My family, we had actually ended up being homeless, and I would have still owed money to my mortgage because there wouldn't have been coverage to get my home fixed. So it's
So
very, very important to have an agent.
So, and that's good that you brought that up because like, well, you already know what happened here. But when it comes
Mhm.
to the different types of coverages for each individual business, I know it can get like people think that it can get pricey, but to me, I feel like you have to weigh those options because again, like I've literally seen a lot of boutiques come and go. The majority of them did not
Mhm.
have insurance. Like when I look at insurance, it's like it's more than just it's protecting, but it's like it's also like you're protecting you're protecting your investments, you're protecting your livelihood. And I don't think people realize that when it comes to having a business, right? So if your business is bread and butter, how are you not insuring that as if you would your body when it comes to medical insurance? Like that's kind of
Absolutely.
how I feel.
Mhm.
Um, how do you feel when it comes to people who, I'll say it, half-ass it and then come to you like, hey,
So
because what does
so
that
what
do?
I will say is insurance is based off of risk. Okay.
Mhm.
So the higher the risk, the more amount of money you're going to pay for insurance. The lower the risk, the least amount of money you're going to pay for insurance. So, like if you're a retail store, you're selling clothes, essentially that policy is going to be pretty low. Um, if you are making a product that people are ingesting, you're going to pay more for that because there's a lot of stipulations and things in place, and the risk is greater for someone to get injured with that product as it is for this hat that I just bought from Shauna Solomon collection. So those are things that you want to, think about. So with that being said, you have to go in it with an open mindset. So, what is it that I'm doing? So, if you are a general contractor, okay, and you are excavating and doing demolition and you're doing all these different things, your policy is going to be more detailed and it's going to cost you more money for you to be able to do that. Now, if you're just a janitor, you know what I mean? Because there's so many different types of contractors. If you're a janitor, you're going to pay less than someone who is a contractor. So, like, those are the type of things that you want to think about. But the biggest thing that I can say is talk to an agent, because they'll be able to tell you exactly what it is that you need. If you don't feel like you need everything that they're providing you at that moment, maybe cut it down, tailor it down to what you feel as though you need at that particular time, and then build onto that as your business continues to grow.
But also be realistic that if you do not do that, so one of the reasons with me with wanting to do this series is because let's say you don't do that. Like I need people to be responsible for what they are doing and what they have not done because that happens as well. This is what the
Mhm.
expectation is when it comes to the insurance policy that you could afford at that time or did you select it, and I'm telling you this is what you need and you chose this, and then something happens.
Mhm.
That is, a lot of times we go back to that person when ultimately it's us that has to take accountability for that happening. How do you how does insurance work with small businesses and employees?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you definitely want to make sure that you have things like, again, it depends on the type of business. So, I'll use my daughter's business as an example. So she has a beauty salon, and she has stylists in there that are doing people's hair. So for a lot of different companies, there are professional liability insurance, and for a beauty salon, any type of beauty salon, nail salon, barbershop, where you have services to where you are applying chemicals to people, you should always have some type of professional liability policy. So with that being said, if one of her employees um, were to put a relaxer or color system in someone's hair, and they didn't do like a spot check, because they always tell you to know, just do one spot just to see how the hair reacts. Let's say they don't do that, and if the result of them not doing that is this person's hair fell out, so
Mm.
that's a lawsuit against the the beauty salon. It is, I mean, if all your hair falls out because you didn't take the necessary steps to make sure that that wasn't going to happen, I could hold you liable for that. So with that professional liability for beauty salons and barbershops and beauty salons, barbershops, estheticians, all of that, you want to make sure that you have that to cover your employees and yourself if something was to happen. There's also EPLI. And basically what that is that's like employer liability. So you have a retail shop, okay? You have employees that work in your retail shop, and there's this, you know, handsome FedEx guy who comes in there all the time to bring you your deliveries. And every single time you come in, your one employee is like, "Oh, honey, you are fine." But he doesn't take this to be a compliment. He's looking at it as sexual harassment. So he goes and he files a lawsuit against your company. If you don't have employer's liability coverage, guess what? You're paying for that out of pocket.
Y'all better stop flirting. What? Y'all better stop flirting. What?
Yes. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
And the crazy part is people literally do that. So yesterday when I was doing a class, I was telling them how I had a client who literally had somebody that kept coming to her store because she didn't have, you know how you have the with the wheelchair, like the accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
she ended up filing a claim against them because it was, and I'm like, or like, is this a thing? But there are literally people out there, like scamming one is at an all-time high, right? So that's the thing. But then I'm like, I couldn't believe this lady sued her because, like, first of all, she wouldn't have bought anything, but we can't put anything past anybody at this point. There's a couple more questions that I wanted to ask. One of them is, do you have to have a certain level of experience? Does that affect your rate or your policy? Like, so like say if you're just now getting into hair, would that affect the cost of your policy?
So things like a beauty salon, no. But if you are talking about contractors or truck drivers, you know that right now there's a high demand for delivery for like Amazon drivers and things like that. So your first 5 years, you're going to pay out the wazoo for insurance. But after you have that 5 years experience, the major companies will then insure you. And usually when you get with a major company, your rate is a fraction of the cost of what you have been paying the previous years. You also want to keep in mind too, whenever you're thinking about things like that, or the people that you're bringing into your business, especially truck drivers. So any delivery companies, even if you just have a van or if you have a truck, whatever, a box truck, whatever the case may be, you want to definitely make sure that you're talking to your agent throughout the hiring process with the drivers that they want to add on to their policy. So you may hire someone and you didn't check their MVR record.
Or a criminal.
And they have accidents. Their motor vehicle report is their MVR record. My apologies. And maybe you didn't check to see whether or not if they had speeding tickets, moving violations, license suspensions, DUIs, things like that. Like all of that is going to impact your policy. So if you're just adding, a regular driver, they don't have any accidents or anything like that, that's going to have a lower impact to where if you say, oh, I hired this person and you're just now reaching out to your insurance agent to get them added to the policy, you're going to have a shock when you see how much it is to add that person. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to your insurance agent during the hiring process to say, hey, I'm thinking about maybe bringing this person on. Can you do me a favor and see what it would be to add them to my policy? And when we do things like that, we can actually see whether or not if there's been any accidents, and it'll show us what their premium will go to if they were to add that driver.
Okay. Woo. So that's the same? Is that the same with criminal as well? If they're a criminal, say if you have a retail store, right? I know some policies cover theft, but what if you hire somebody that's a thief? But not know it, you know what I'm saying? Because you might not know until like I'm heavy on it. Like right now, everybody gets a criminal background check because people are crazy these days. But what if you like you pull it, they go to run them and they're a thief? So what does that explain that? Like how do we handle that?
So my recommendation to any business owner, when you are hiring someone, like especially in the state of PA, like we have the PA docket sheets, and I would highly recommend anyone that you are bringing into your facility that you go in there, go into the docket sheets, and do a search for the last 10 years and just see what comes up. You will be amazed of some of the things that are in there. And that can, I mean, even like, let's just say you don't have the money to run a criminal background check on everyone all the time. This is a free way that you can do that. Now, it's not going to pick up things in other states, but at least it'll give you the insight of what they've been going through while they're here in Pennsylvania.
If you can't afford to pay for a criminal background check, you might not need to be hired. See, you need to be saying, okay, great information. So another question that I had was, when it comes to having multiple businesses, can they be all on one policy or do they have to be separate?
Definitely separate, because if you have we'll just use you for an example. If you have a retail store and you also have a consulting company, a lot of times the EIN is different. So if you're operating, and that's a way that you can figure out whether or not if it needs to be separated. If you have a different business name and a different EIN, you need a different policy.
Okay. So for those who are out there having 3 and 4 businesses saying that they got 3 and 4 streams of income, let's hope that all of those that everything is legit, because again, it's not that we don't want you to make, we want you to make the money. We just don't want you to get caught up in anything. If anybody has questions, please absolutely put them in the chat. We're getting ready to close out. Shortly, I have one more question because it's kind of piggybacking off of what Tiffany asked about online. Online, there is a lot of scamming and things like that goes on. With having a retail store, is any of that covered under insurance?
So there's coverages like credit card theft, forgery of checks. Those are definitely things that you want to make sure that your policy covers. There's a whole lot of other different coverages, but that for an online store, I would definitely think about people using people's credit card numbers that aren't correct, and then the bank comes back and says, hey, I'm taking this. Like, if you have the coverage for that on your policy, then you can file a claim for that. And let's just talk about filing claims really quick. So keep in mind that insurance companies are in the business to make money. And I'm not saying that on we want you to pay for your insurance, but we don't want you to file a claim. You have to make it make sense. So, and I say this as a consumer and not an insurance agent, because ultimately, like, I don't work for the insurance company, I work for you. But you got to think about things like, I'm filing this claim to recover the items that I lost, but the items that you lost were $700 and your deductible is $500. So you're about to file a claim with the insurance company for $200. Doesn't make sense. So your deductible is the amount that you're responsible for if you have a claim. And I'll even go as far as to say you lost $1,000 worth of items and your deductible is $500. Are you going to file a claim for $500? Because what you want to think about is, if I file this claim for $500, and let's just say I had like a really big claim, and that claim is $30,000. So now what you want to think about is claim frequency. And then not only claim frequency, am I about to pay a higher rate on my insurance to protect myself? Because now I'm a higher risk because I done filed 2 claims. So like, these are things you want to think about. So are we going to file a claim for $500 and then we get a $700 increase on our insurance? Like, does it make sense? So I'm not saying not to file a claim, but what I am saying is call your agent have a conversation with your agent. This happened. What do you think? We're never going to tell you not to file a claim. We're going to give you our personal opinion if it was us, whether or not if we would file a claim or not.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? We are rounding out in about 10 minutes. I did want to have, I said I had one question. I lied. I have another one. The more you talk, the more questions I have. And I'm probably asking questions that people
It's
want to know
okay.
anyway. But so like say if somebody is having an event, you know how we get these when you are going to certain events and they'll have you sign off on things. Does that mean anything from an insurance standpoint?
So when you say they're having you sign off on things,
Like a
what type of
consent, like that
things
they're
are you
not
referring
liable.
to?
Like when they say they're not liable, like is that anything? Like
Mhm,
does that mean anything? Like does that affect like so say if somebody so say if I was having an event and I had everybody sign off and said,
mhm,
hey, we're not liable for this and this. Because again, we have the Black woman meetup that's coming up. Like I need to get that insured at
mhm,
this point. So it's like,
mhm.
but me saying, hey, can you sign this? Does that mean anything? Or like, can you explain that?
So a couple different things with that. So as far as the Black Women Meetup is concerned, I will probably definitely have people sign a consent for that, just saying that, you're not responsible for their intake of alcohol. If something was to happen, you can't hold me liable for it.
Okay.
You could do that. Now, another thing that I'll say is let's just talk about the Black label market. Okay. And I know a lot of the people who are in the Black label market, they're small business owners. So some of them may not have their own insurance policies. But in the contract for that, if I were you, I would make it a requirement for them to carry insurance. The reason why I say that is you're renting out this space. And let's just say, one of them causes some type of damage to the property. They're holding you responsible, not them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if they have their own insurance, if they have their own general liability policy in place, then I would just ask them, hey, add me as an additional insured to this policy for this event for this day. And I need to have a copy of that for your record. So if something does happen and they come back to you and say, Shauna, the person who was at this station here, they damaged this or they started a fire or whatever the case may be, instead of it rolling onto you, it'll roll onto them. And then if there's extra liability that needs to be covered, then your insurance would pick that up.
So when I
Now,
did the Black
this
label market
one
out,
day event.
when I did a Black label
Go
market
ahead.
out, when we did it out Monroeville, they actually
Mhm.
there was I signed up for the insurance there through them, so I didn't have to go through all of that because I only needed it for that day. Is that enough?
So you really shouldn't have even needed to do that because you have your own insurance policy. So basically, all you would have needed to do was contact your insurance company and say, hey, I need to have the Monroeville Convention Center added as an additional insured on my policy for this particular date. They will provide you with a certificate of insurance, and you take that certificate of insurance and give it to the people at the convention center and say, here's my proof of insurance. You've been added as an additional insured. Being that you have your own insurance policy, you don't have to purchase event insurance.
Okay. So like that's good. That's good because me, the type of person that I am, if it's extra, like we have the Black woman meetup coming up, and I don't have a consent, which I'm gonna get on today, but we do. We're covered for our events. I didn't know that, but so for me, like I usually just tell
Mhm.
people to add it because it's one less thing that I want to have to worry about. So I
Right,
usually will do,
right.
especially if it's less than $100, I'm gonna go ahead and pay it just to kind of just
Mhm,
add it so I don't have to do a whole bunch, especially when it comes to my insurance and stuff like that. But
mhm.
do you have anything that you want to end us with?
So briefly, I just want to go over like the different types of insurance just so you have like a general understanding. Again, if you want to get in deep with me, you can reach me. But there's a BOP. So if you ever hear someone says BOP, it's just the business owner's policy. And then there's a general liability policy, which would be your GL. That covers liability limits, damage to rented premises, medical expenses, personal and advertising injury, and products completed in product completed operations. Then you have business auto. Your business auto is going to cover your vehicle while you're operating in a business capacity. Cargo can be added. Careful, this does not act like a personal policy whenever it comes to your first party benefits. So with a regular personal insurance policy, if you're injured, then you can go back to your first party benefits and you have $5,000 in medical coverage. It does not work the same for a business auto policy. Have a conversation with your agent about that. There's also workers' comp. Workers' comp protects you from lawsuit if an employee is injured on the job. It is required by the state if you have employees. So if you have employees, you should have a workers' comp policy. If someone gets injured in your space and they go to the hospital and they say, "Oh, I got injured at work," they're going to be like, "Oh, yeah, this is workers' comp." And when they come back to you and you don't have it, it's going to be a problem. There's also an umbrella policy. That umbrella policy is basically exactly what it is. It's an umbrella over all your other policies, so it's extra liability. So it provides additional liability coverage over the amount listed on your business operator's policy or your general liability. You have to have at least $1 million in coverage on the liability policy in order for you to be able to get an umbrella policy. There's other policies like D&O. D&O is directors and officers. If you have a board, you definitely want to make sure that you have that coverage. There's also professional liability. Based on the type of business that you have, there may be some professional liability associated with that. Data breach, we talked about that briefly, about someone, stealing your information. You definitely want to make sure that you have that. And then the employer's liability insurance, we also talked about that as well. And these are all additional coverages that can be added to a business owner's policy or purchased separately to enhance your coverages.
Woo-wee. Well, that's a lot. However, I appreciate you providing so much information because I know I looked at some of the names of the people who have joined. Thanks to everybody who has joined and who asked questions. But I know there's like a variety of people that have joined and wanted to get this information. It's so important for us to make sure that we are set up properly in order to reach these goals. Because I meet with a lot of small businesses who have these big dreams, but we really want you to have these dreams. We want you to get to those. The dreams are attainable, one, but we want you to be able to get to them as quickly as possible with as less mess as possible. So making sure that you are properly insured is one of the main things that I wanted to get out to our people. So I want to thank you so much, Chaka, for coming on
Thank
and
you
your
for having me.
absolutely. Like I'm all for educating. Like for me, Tamika said, good info. Thanks. Um, I think that what we have to do is we have to educate those around us so that because some people just don't know, right? And the more that we can
Yes.
give, especially for those who have been seasoned, who've been out there for a while, we need to have these conversations because I say this all the time, we already have to walk in these rooms and we have to prove ourselves. Let's not push ourselves back anymore. Let's really like do what we have to do so that we can show up properly. Y'all know how I am about showing up. And
Yeah.
I do want to close out and just say again, just thanks everybody for joining my first blog. I appreciate y'all. Next week we are talking about brand positioning and messaging. I do want to mention that we have the Black Woman Meetup that's coming up on February 23rd. I believe we only have 4 RSVPs left. We did increase it a little bit. So if you want to attend that, make sure that you head over to my website, ShaunaSolomonAssociates.com. If you want to learn about what I do and how I assist small businesses with growing, definitely head over to my website. There's all kind of information over there. We have started our blog. And again, my goal and my team's goal is to educate as much as possible so that we can help everybody reach the heights that they want to reach. Thank you. Hi, Danielle. So we have like a few of the ladies on from the class, so that's great. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. It is 2:00 and I'm getting ready to go do something. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys later. Make sure that you subscribe. I always forget to tell people to do that. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure that you hit that button so that you can get notified when we are doing these Life of a CEO series. They are every Thursday. The live ones are at 12 noon. And each week we're going to bring on a small business owner to highlight and to have these conversations with. If you do want to be interviewed, you can also do that over on my website at ShaunaSolomonAssociates.com. Thank you guys. Have a great one.